The most overrated squad at this World Cup has just been exposed. And the painful part is that nobody wants to say it directly. The pundits who backed them before the tournament are suddenly talking about bad luck and slow starts and the need for more time to find their rhythm. The analysts who placed them among the contenders are finding careful language to describe what is actually a very simple situation. This team was never as good as the reputation suggested, and the World Cup is proving it in the most public and unforgiving way possible. They did not arrive quietly. They arrived with everything the modern football media machine produces for teams it has decided to believe in before the competition starts. Pundit backing, favorable rankings, the kind of collective confidence that spreads from one broadcast panel to the next until it stops feeling like opinion and starts feeling like fact. Other nations looked at the draw, saw this team's name, and adjusted their expectations accordingly. And that reputation was not built from nothing. The big names are real. The individual quality that generated the highlight reels and the club performances that formed the foundation of the pre-tournament narrative exists. These are genuinely talented players who have performed at the highest level consistently enough to justify the individual attention they receive. But the World Cup is not club football, and the gap between individual quality and collective identity is exactly where this squad has always been most vulnerable. Nobody examined that gap closely enough before the tournament. The World Cup is examining it now, in front of everyone, without mercy. The first match was supposed to set the tone. Instead, it raised questions the pre-tournament coverage had not prepared anyone to ask. The shape collapsed under pressure in ways that well-organized coaching teams are not supposed to allow at this level. Not in isolated moments. Structurally, in the recurring way that reveals a defensive organization not properly prepared for the demands of World Cup football. The midfield lost control not because the opponent was individually superior, but because the collective structure providing balance and cover was absent when it was most needed. The attack was isolated and predictable in the specific way that tells experienced defensive teams everything they need to know about how to approach the next fixture. No unpredictability in movement. No combination play that forced defenders into decisions they had not prepared for. What looked balanced on paper looked fragile on grass. And fragile is a word World Cup opponents write down and carry into their preparation. When systems fail, stars are supposed to rescue teams. That is the logic the big-name culture operates on. Build around the individuals. Trust that when structure breaks down the quality of the players inside, it will find a way. At club level, that logic sometimes holds. At a World Cup, it does not. Not consistently. Not against the level of opponent the knockout rounds produce. The big names are present. The individual moments that justified the expectation are visible in isolated flashes. But impact is missing. The sustained match-defining impact that the best players at this tournament are producing in the moments their teams need them most. When individuals disappear in big moments at a World Cup, the hype surrounding them converts into pressure. The exact pressure that makes the next big moment harder to produce than the one before it. This squad is currently trapped inside that cycle with no clear way out. The biggest issue is not form. Form is temporary. The problem is identity. And identity is not temporary. Nobody watching this team can define clearly what they are trying to be. Not dominant in possession in the way that makes a team genuinely difficult to play against. Not dangerous in transition in the way compact teams compensate for possession loss. Not stable enough defensively to protect results when the attacking quality is not producing outcomes. So every match becomes reactive. The tactical approach shifts not because of sophisticated planning, but because there is no consistent identity to anchor the preparation. And reactive football at a World Cup means giving the initiative to opponents who have done the work to deserve it. This is where everything changed. The moment opponents stopped fearing them. Fear is a real tactical factor at a World Cup. Teams adjust their approach based on what they believe the opponent is capable of. The reputation this squad carried into the tournament had a genuine protective function. Opponents planned around the assumption that this team was dangerous in ways requiring specific caution. Now the footage exists. The patterns are visible. The specific ways this team can be pressured, broken, and forced into mistakes have been demonstrated publicly enough that every remaining opponent has access to the blueprint. Press here. Break here. Force mistakes here. The plan is no longer hypothetical. It has been proven. And once a plan has been proven against a team at a World Cup, every subsequent opponent arrives with the confidence that proof provides. The media narrative has shifted in the way that is often harder to recover from than losing matches. Before the tournament, the coverage framed this squad as contenders. Not cautiously, as contenders. The kind of framing that shapes how fans, opponents, and the players themselves understand their own position in the competition. Now the questions being asked are no longer the questions asked about contenders. Whether the individual quality was ever supported by the collective structure necessary to convert it into tournament success. Whether the pre-tournament consensus was based on evidence or assumption. Whether this is a slow, start-a-strong performance can correct or a fundamental reality the tournament has taken a few matches to make visible. That shift changes the environment inside which a squad operates. Players read the coverage. Managers respond to the questions. And the collective psychology of a team that arrived believing it was a contender and is now being publicly questioned is a different and more fragile thing than the one that walked through the airport before the opening match. Was this squad truly elite? Or was it always a collection of big names without the system to match them? Those are different things. Genuinely different things the pre-tournament conversation consistently failed to separate. Individual quality and collective identity are not the same thing. A squad full of players who perform at the highest level for their clubs is not automatically a squad that functions at the highest level as a national team. The connections, the understanding, the tactical coherence that makes individual quality translate into collective performance. Those things require building. Time. A clear identity the players internalized deeply enough to produce under World Cup pressure. This squad did not have that. And the evidence was always there for anyone willing to look past the names on the team sheet and examine what sat underneath them. The tactical patterns that never quite connected. The collective movements that looked rehearsed in friendly matches and fragile in competitive ones. The defensive organization that held against weaker opposition and collapsed the moment a team with genuine quality applied genuine pressure. The World Cup did not create that absence. It revealed it. The way it always reveals the truth about every squad that arrives carrying more reputation than substance. Slowly, publicly, without the courtesy of allowing anyone to look away. As it always does. This is not a single collapse. It is a slow reveal. The World Cup does not destroy teams instantly. It removes their protection layer by layer until what remains is the reality underneath. The reputation goes first. Then the tactical uncertainty becomes visible. Then the individual quality stops compensating for the collective deficiency. Then the opponents stop being cautious and start being aggressive because the evidence tells them they can. And that is the part nobody prepares for. Not the bad result. Not the difficult match. The moment when every layer is gone and the team is standing on the biggest stage in football with nothing left between them and what they actually are. No reputation. No consensus. No pre-tournament narrative to fall back on. Just the football, raw and public and impossible to manage quietly anymore. By the time this tournament ends, the question will not be how far this squad went. It will be what they actually were all along. And the answer the World Cup is writing is not the one the pre-tournament consensus prepared anyone for.